This is the regular board meeting of March 17, 2022. The time is now 4:35 p.m. Please call the roll.
President Herrera,
Here.
Vice President Chavez. Here. Clerk Cortese. Here. Member Lay. Here. Member Doe. Present on Zoom.
Joe is present on Zoom. Are there any members of the public who would like to provide public comment to the board on a closed session agenda item at this time? See none, asking for that in the audience, and is there anyone online who has?
We have no online public comment.
Folks, seeing none, hearing none, the board will recess to executive session, to closed session, and will return 6 p.m. for the public session. Good evening and welcome to the board meeting of March 17, 2022. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Republic for which it stands. Again, welcome to our board meeting. For members of the public who wish to comment, please submit your comment, your public comment online by accessing the form on the district's homepage at ESUHSD.org or the link on the agenda. Please limit your written comments to no more than 1,000 characters in length. Public comments submitted online will be read into the record. You may also raise your hand virtually in Zoom to request to speak. You will have 2 minutes to speak. Please note that all our board meetings are recorded. All regular and special meetings of the Board of Trustees and our board study sessions are streamed live on meeting nights and are also available for viewing the day after the meeting by accessing the district's YouTube channel listed on the district's webpage, again at ESUHSD.org under the Quick Links section. The board is not able to respond to items that are not on the agenda or anything pertaining to staff personnel issues. Your comment will be read into the record and will be directed to the superintendent and/or the appropriate staff member for response. Interpretation of this meeting in Spanish and Vietnamese can be heard by accessing the link and following the instructions shown on the agenda and the district's website. We're moving on to 5.01 and the agenda, which is the adoption of the agenda. And this is a point where anything that is going to be removed or changed, and if there is no such request from the board or the superintendent, we're going to proceed with the agenda as published. Moving on to item 6, there are no items under this section of board special recognitions. Moving on to item 7, student board liaison, 5 minutes. Paula Escobar, our student governing board representative. Is Paula online?
I do not see Paula online yet.
We'll check back later. We do not see our student representative online at this point. Item 8.01, item 8 is operational items and board discussion and or action items. 8.01 is if we want to change the order of what we're going to be talking about. If there is no request to change the order, we're going to proceed as published, which is item 8.02, presentation, discussion, and/or action to receive and approve the second interim financial report for fiscal year 2021-2022, calling on our interim associate superintendent of business, Ron Wheelahan, and our director of finance, Sylvia Paula. Mr. Wheelahan, please proceed.
Thank you, trustees. Welcome. And this evening's discussion is around the second interim report. This is the third revision of our budget for the year. And I'd like to thank Sylvia Palaio for her hard work on this document and all the documents. It's a huge book that comes out with all of our budgets, and so that the public can access the documents. So we'll try the next slide. Yeah, I'm gonna have to redo it. So first, this is our normal slide. I've kind of described the budget cycles. We've already done the unaudited actuals. We're now working on the current year for this current fiscal year. And tonight we're going to compare from the first interim to the second interim, the differences. And next, we're going to be working on the budget. So that's the next thing. So that's we're not really working on next year's budget today, other than I do have some multi-year scenarios to share with you. So our job tonight is to look at the first interim the second interim as it compares to the first interim. So this reflects our financial data up until January 31st of this year. We are certifying positive. However, it does include the board fiscal solvency resolution that was done last June of 2021. And it is an action item and for review and approval. So again, we're comparing the second interim to first interim. We're making budget adjustments as we go. So last June, you adopted a budget, and then Mr. Ju came forward and we did the 45-day. Then we did the first interim, and now for this fiscal year, this will be the second interim, our last budget adjustment. So we take the adopted budget and we adjust it as the year goes by. So this is our comparison tonight. So what's new in the second interim report, which we didn't have in the first interim, is the recognition of the Educator Effectiveness Block Grant revenue. We received $3.3 million of restricted funding. This is 80% of the grant. We'll receive the rest of it next year. This is to provide professional development for teachers, administrators, classified staff for their effectiveness in the classroom. The second money that's new is we also received some COVID dollars from the special ed. And this is to be used for alternative dispute resolution and learning recovery for our special ed students. So again, these are additional restricted dollars for the special ed department. So these were our two major items that came in. We did some small adjustments for unfilled positions, as well as other working budget adjustments as the year. They were very minor, but the two big ones were the restricted dollars that came in. Okay, so next slide, thank you. And so I'll just kind of go through the new revenue, and if you can hit the space bar, we'll, here's our LCF revenue went down $500,000 due to our UPP, our unduplicated student count. So we lost a little bit of revenue, but then down a little bit. One more space bar. We gained a little bit, $300,000 from our ESSER 3. And then the next space bar. So here's the $4.5 million that we got for the block grant as well as the special ed funding. So we show that, we recognize it came in between first and second interim. And we see a little bit increase uptick of some rentals, leases, miscellaneous, 200,000. So a total from first to second interim, we're seeing a little bit of increased revenue of 4.5. So that is our new revenue. Next slide. Want to give that a go? Nope. So again, we'll kind of flip through real quick. What's the with the next space bar? I think we're going to click through. So certificated salaries went up slightly. This was for the increased hourly 6th period and supervision. So we saw a slight uptick in salaries. No significant change in classified salaries. We saw a slight savings from open positions in health benefits. Next. We spent an uptick in this case in textbooks. So we've started to do our textbook ordering for next year. So that is an increase. And we had also an increase in our COVID test and our routine maintenance. So we saw some increase since December. And one more. So we did see a little bit of savings in our SELPA. So our other outgo, we saw a bit of savings for a total of 1.6 increased expense. So actually that's bad because our expenses went up 1.5, our revenues went up 4.5. So next slide. So this is what we look current year at second interim. So if you hit, I'll try to focus your attention. So of course we have our unrestricted and we have our restricted programs. So this is where we are now at this year, and I guess this would work. So this is our carryover balance. This has not changed since our unaudited actuals. These are our total revenues. These are our total anticipated expenditures. So we're now anticipating a deficit spend this current year of 10.2, a slight improvement of deficit spending due to the new restricted dollars coming in. So we project at the end of this year a fund balance of 52.8, and which calculates to a 12.49. So of course, in that fund balance resides our restricted funding and our one-time COVID dollars. So next slide, please. Enrollment. This is our typical slide. Again, we're showing the steep cliff. However, current law allows us for our current year to be funded on the highest of either the current or the previous year. So we're going to be able to be funded at this higher level. We are hoping that we have a ADA averaging fix and we'll be able to average the last 3 years and be funded on that amount. So we'll see how that comes out. We'll know very soon if the ADA averaging proposal from the governor will actually come to be. So that's our enrollment.
Is the delta from, I mean, that's a steep drop in ADA, meaning attendance, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Do we think, I mean, and of course, January was horrendous for attendance with COVID and all that. But it looks like we're continuing that decline. I mean, how much of that drop? I mean, some of it is declining enrollment, right? But there's also a
Right.
drop in attendance that's disproportional, right? How much of that do we attribute to COVID?
So typically the district has a 95.6, attendance rate. It got as low into the 80s during COVID as far as attendance rate. And right now the average is 91%. So that's reflected in this. Again, giving case to the governor and to the legislators that we need to do some kind of averaging because of the uptick in attendance.
Okay, so even last year, well,
Last year we were held harmless.
held harmless. So that's why we're using the previous year.
Yeah.
So 2019, 2020, well, that wasn't even a full school year either.
That's right. That was our last good mark. Was 18-19. We were able to use 18-19 for 1920 and 2020. Is this, you're right, we left this March 17th, right? It's been 2 years today, roughly. So you're right, we were held harmless for those 2 years.
So I'm looking at like, gee, this is actually quite a decline, but actually the 2172 from last year is probably higher than we might have naturally been.
That's right. And if you,
Yeah.
yeah, if you look back further, right, we also, I mean, we had this between 1718 and 1819. Again, that's what, we're funded on ADA, and that's what triggered some other, alarms, is that we were seeing our ADA drop even
Right.
before COVID.
Okay, so you're saying that we're allowed to use the 21,720 again?
Yes.
Okay,
But what we need to do is we're trying to budget now for 22, 23. And, I'll show you a slide that, if we use this low budget number, it's just, yeah, it's quite a hit.
okay, thank you.
Okay, this is our multi-year, so I'm using the current law. So this is where we're able to only go back and look at our highest year, go back 1 year. So here's where we think we are, and this was the previous slide. We think we're going to have 63 million in our fund balance. Our revenue and expenditures made a few changes that I described. We're going to deficit spend 10.2, end up with 52.8, and we bring that forward. And again, we plan on being fully staffed, and we plan on spending down our reserve, our one-time COVID money that is in the fund balance. We plan on spending that next year to keep going with the existing level of staffing. The next year, our fund balance goes forward. We've got our revenues that we're anticipating. This is without a fix. Then we've got our expenditures, and in this, we've got the reduction of 24.8. So this makes our third year balance out. We'll only have to deficit spend 8.8, and we'll remain just 3%. So that keeps us alive. That keeps us with a minimum fund balance for a district this size. So that's the current law. So the next slide is, okay, this is what the county office is asking us to turn in with this report, pardon me, is use current law, don't use the ADA. So the next slide shows, okay, let's say the governor does come through in May, revise, we find out that yes, we are going to be able to average last 3 years. This doesn't change. We're still in the second interim. We're still looking here. So then we would still bring the 52 million forward. We would have, now I know this is just a slight fix. So you want to hit one more. So this is our second year. Things are, again, we're spending down some of our one-time COVID money, leaves us a larger fund balance to carry forward. And then again, in this case, the reductions only need to be 12 million. So this is actually a good, a decent picture. However, it has this in, and again, these slides do not have any kind of salary augmentation in them yet. So that's the two scenarios. The county office wants current law. We want to look at what it may be, what it's likely going to be with an ADA fix. And that's the scenario that I provided. So those are our two multi-years. We'll have more of these when we do the budget. So fiscal solvency. So as I mentioned, we did get some restricted dollars. It brought our fund balance up. However, we've got two written plans. We've got the effective educator effectiveness grant, and we've got the special ed additional learning dollars for the special ed. So again, we're $1 dollars in the past have kind of put us off for immediate reductions, but we're still facing for the 23-24, some reductions are going to need to happen unless, again, and I understand that, one-time money comes in, unless something comes in, we're out of the pandemic. We'll just see if any one-time money comes in, it will have strings attached, or in other words, it'll be restricted, likely. So again, we're going to have to look in November and come up with a plan for the following year. And the good news is before from 39.6 to 24.8. And last point, again, I'll let you know that in these numbers are no salary augmentations are not included in these reports. Okey doke. So what are we hearing from the state? The favorable proposals. The first one, of course, is the ADA averaging. The good news is a COLA of 5.33 to finance all of our increases this year. A proposal to deal with the cliff, COVID cliff, they're calling it. We're likely to see additional restricted special ed funding. This is the AB 602 dollars. We're going to see more for our special ed students, which could help the general fund budget. Absolutely. We'll likely see some dual enrollment expansion. Again, one-time restricted dollars for expanding our dual enrollment programs, either from 8th grade into high school or high school into. We might see some green buses money. The governor wants to, he's still on that. And some kitchen infrastructure upgrades. So this is what we know now. So our next steps is the May revise. That will come out the 10th of May. Usually by the 20th, we'll have information on what the final assumptions are for the governor's budget. Hopefully there'll be a declining enrollment adjustment. And then we are starting now on the 22-23 budget development. And we will bring you the rough draft in June, the first meeting. We recommend that you approve the second interim budget document as provided. And any questions, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, thank you for that presentation, and we will need at some point here a motion for approving the second interim report. I do have a request to speak, so why don't we just
Okay.
hear that, and then we'll come to discussion and more interaction with Mr. Lewin. Request from Jack Hamner to make a comment. Jack, as president of one of our bargaining units, the Eastside Teachers Association, Mr. Hamner has 5 minutes, up to 5 minutes to speak.
That's good enough. Thank you. I appreciate that. My name is Jack Hamner. I'm the president of Eastside Teachers Association. And my comment was really just general public comment, but since it was finance related, I just put it at the end of the presentation. I didn't speak, sorry. I emailed everybody some numbers that I felt were really relevant for people to take a look at, because when we do our analysis, which usually is pretty solid, there were some serious questions about certain things that came up, but I just wanted to put this on public record for everybody else to know. And they can, research the finance documents themselves, as well as what you probably did. But what I do have is I am comparing the unaudited actuals that came out, I believe, in September. I'll get my dates wrong. And with the budget that we have for this year. And so when you look at that, and I have to read this because I sent this to you, but when it came to certificated salaries, right? Certificated salary doesn't mean benefits, medical, any of that stuff. It's just straight salaries. The unaudited actuals from last year was 121 million. And the budget for this year's teacher salaries was 140 million. So it doesn't take anybody that's not very solid in math to figure out that that's about almost $20 million in certificated salaries, and that's salaries alone. And I think most of you, hopefully, would understand that we do not have $20 million in new salaries for our district this year. If you take the highest paid person in the district without using stipends like masters and doctorates at 130,000, that is about 145 new jobs. So I can tell you without a doubt in my mind, and I'm sure you all would agree, and Ron probably would too. And Ron, thank you for all your work on that. It's very, very well done. that we do not have 146 new people for certificated staff this year. It's not, didn't happen. Now, if those are unfilled positions, I still don't think we have 146, 145, 146 of those. Okay, so while I was doing that, I figured I would run the CSEA numbers too. The unaudited actuals had 28.6 million spent on the CSA salary, not benefits and all that, just salaries. And then it was budgeted for 32.6 for this year. So that is $4 million. And CSEA, because of the way the pay system works, it's kind of all over the map. So what I did is I just took probably a healthy number, because this is salary only. I took $50,000 as a salary as far as what a classified person would make over the course of a year. And that came out to about 80 new jobs for that $4 million. And I'm going to tell you right now, Julio is going to tell you, he's damn sure there is not 80 new people in the classified association this year based on that. So there's a little bit of an issue with that. And then the last one, I have 4 of them, but I'll focus on the third one, which is health benefits. Health benefits, which was for everybody. We didn't, it doesn't segregate each of the groups, but health benefits was last year in the actuals 33 million, and this year was 43. That's a 32% increase. And I don't know who in this room, if anybody ever goes to the benefits meeting, but I can guarantee you that benefits do not go up 32%. So when you look at all those numbers and you see that, I understand the estimations maybe for positions we didn't fill. It still doesn't make up for all of the amounts of money that is, let's say, over projected or whatever. I know it's a budget, just like that's a projection. These are projections, but those are your numbers. And so I hope that at some point that we look into that and find out what really the problem is behind that, because we know we do not have that many new staff people in certificated and classified as that money has been budgeted for. So thank you.
That concluded your remarks. Thank you. We do have another request to speak, and then the board will begin with comments, questions, and comments from the administration. Please, Mary, for our online comment.
Public comment from Mr. Larson. Parent. I, as a parent, am upset at the way Ron Willingham does not show the general public in detail the proposed cuts that were agreed to in order to remove 33 million in the district budget. This presentation is sanitized in that it does not clearly state next year we're planning to cut vast teacher jobs and classified jobs and some admin jobs. So we need to inform the general public that we're planning to cut these jobs. The general public did not create those cuts. Those cuts were done independently, and the teachers and parents had no say. In my opinion, Ron Willingham needs to show on his PowerPoint again and again what those cuts are. Also, I ask the board not to approve this budget review if it is an action item. I request the school board to go back to getting buy-in from teachers and others. Buy-in. The teachers union needs to find other things to cut instead of jobs of teachers and prep classes and more. So let us sunshine the job cuts and put it in this report. That is the end of public comment under item 802.
Thank you very much. No other comments then online? We're in the audience here. The board will begin its comments, questions, administration, any other comments, but let me just briefly say to Mr. Larson, and I appreciate how diligent he is in tracking the district's financial status and process, that what is being adopted today, or rather, let me begin again. The board will be making decisions in June, 2 meetings in June, the preliminary budget, the first meeting in June, and the final budget, the second meeting in June. That is when decisions are actually made. What we are doing tonight is a progress report that is leading to the June decisions. The numbers are changing month by month, and no decisions are being made yet. That's not until June. So all we're doing today is complying with county and state requirements to file what is called a second interim report, which is done in March. And we are mindful of the decisions that must be made by the district. My concluding comment, very general, is that they're adopting a 3-year budget, and there is substantial basis for the approach the board has chosen in the past and will be choosing again, which is within a 3-year budget to project the reductions or any cutbacks into the second year of a 3-year budget. The reason for this is that the state has continued to show up with unexpected one-time funds that allow us to let people keep their jobs for at least another year. And that desire of the board is to keep people employed until we're absolutely forced to eliminate jobs. The discussion is much more broad and much more complex than my very general comments right now, but I wanted to begin at least some response to the very legitimate questions raised by Mr. Larson. And in terms of the points made by our ESTA president, Mr. Jack Hamner, I'm going to call on the administration. I appreciate that Mr. Hamner is doing his due diligence and bringing forward some valid questions and points. We will have more opportunities at the board budget sessions in the near future to dive into exactly these types of questions. For tonight, we can at least have a preliminary response if there's one available on behalf of the administration. I see Mr. Wheelahan coming back to the microphone.
Yeah, I'd be happy to respond to Mr. Hamner's observation. Unfortunately, he was looking at the first interim with the budget from last June. When you look at the page and you compared a couple numbers, what we need to do. Yes, he compared the adopted budget from last June to the unaudited actuals, and he did not compare it to tonight's second interim report. So it takes a little bit. You've got to look at the unaudited actuals, and then you've got to take a look at the second interim and match those. Unfortunately, this document is from September. The board has made 3 budget revisions since then. So comparing the numbers in the audit actual to the adopted budget, the budget changes. That's a beauty of the school finance system, is you adopt a budget in June because you have to on June 30th. And then throughout the year, you can make adjustments. And in the comparison that was made was to the old budget. And I'd be happy to help in all due respect. And we can compare the. Yeah. So anyways, it was an error in the analysis. And again, I'm here to help. Anything I could do.
So again, the board is going to have another budget work session. And these questions will be part of what we want to delve into so that the board can fully understand what is being presented both by our ESTA leadership and by the administration, because ultimately the board needs to own it. But thank you for that beginning response. Thank you, Mr. Hamner, for bringing it forward. It's something we're going to pursue. And I think that's it for tonight in terms of a discussion. Mr. Superintendent, did you have?
I just wanted to, Mr. Wheelahan, you mentioned that the budget has been updated. So what is could we go back to looking at what is the current budget for certificated salaries? Okay. Yep.
Your microphone is not picking up.
What page?
Page 43. So page 43 gives you all of the certificated salaries. It'd be about 6 lines down.
Um, This is the line that says,
That's the unrestricted. And again,
so I'm a little confused because this said 116 million. Am I looking?
so you're looking at the unrestricted. So page 59 has them both combined.
Oh, I'm.
So again,
59,
this takes
okay.
our I wasn't, he said teacher salary. So this combines our restricted.
Right.
Okay, so that's page 59, combines them
59.
both.
Okay, so there's our original budget,
Correct?
which is the 149.
Correct?
And then, so then the current budget is 145 million.
Column D?
Column
yes.
D. Okay.
Correct.
And that is close to what we're on track to spend that this year, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And so that's a big difference. And certainly it does include some of those.
Right. So the second item on the analysis. 2021, this is the year that we were in distance learning. So we had no sub pay, we had no additional out of classroom pay, we had a very minimum. So we saved by being closed in distance learning, as we brought out at the end, we saved $20 million, 10 on the unrestricted, 10 on the, so to the comparison of a closed year to an open year. So now we ramped up and we started to come back alive. Now we have to budget for salaries. We brought on the 6th period. We did a settlement. We brought on our MTSS. So we have gone up from a closed year, distance learning, to a year where now we're back in session, along with all the operation costs that come with that.
As you mentioned more than once in your report verbally here, but that still doesn't take into account any adjustments we may get made to our salary line item.
That's correct.
For staff,
That's-
so.
Because there still may be some open positions that we don't end up filling
Well,
or something
yeah,
like that,
yeah,
right?
we're in the process right now where we're gonna see what we come to agreement on.
Right.
Staff problem.
Exactly. And then we'll put that in our next multi-year projection.
Got it.
Any other comment or question, members of the board, or Mr. Superintendent?
Yeah, I do have a comment. Like in listening to this discussion, I understand the difference in comparing numbers at the end of a budgeting cycle with the unaudited actuals, where it started and then how it refined and how it ended, comparing it to a full a new budget in a new budgetary cycle. I get that as just kind of perhaps we should compare other things. I hear the lean year of 2021 compared to 21-22. But I, as the superintendent, also hear Jack's question and ask myself the same, which is, okay, if there are these new dollars in these new expenses, what are they? If it's 20 versus 15 or 12 or 8 million more for 21-22 than it was for 2021, what made that up? And I think that's the conversation going forward we can have, not just comparing year to year, but also if you're saying these are the expenses, or these are the increases in expenses, let's just itemize those out and make sure that they're there. Because the truth is it's a beneficial process for us to do as a district, to continue to revise. And that's what these interim reports really are to be doing. It's to be refining what are your actual expenses, and to make sure that with the dollars that we have, that we can continue to build those programs for all our educating community. So I hear the central question being asked still of just what are these new expenses, and can we figure out where those are?
So again, budget work session in the very near future, we're going to revisit this set of questions and issues and really tie it down for the board's understanding and the understanding of all of our interested stakeholders. I want to add one other question that persists in my mind. That is, and I mentioned it in the initial budget work session we had a few weeks ago, the reality of a structural deficit that the district has been carrying for quite a few years now, which we've been able to avoid dealing with because the state keeps pumping one-time funds through one circumstance or strategy or another. And that's true this year as well. So the question on the table for me is, given today's information and realities, how real is this structural deficit? And therefore, if it is indeed real, doesn't that mean that the more that our baseline of ongoing costs rises, and the revenues don't match, the baseline revenues don't match that of unrestricted funds, doesn't that mean that these increased cost of ongoing baseline of ongoing costs are going to at some point be paid for with people's jobs, essentially? We're financing our increased costs, and just to put it in very blunt terms, on the backs of people who will lose their jobs when the moment of truth cannot be avoided or escaped any further. So that remains a question in my mind, because variables always are shifting with this state funding of public education. And you always have to like assess what's so in the year in which you're looking at the district's fiscal condition. So we have to look again. Is it true that there's a structural deficit, and what's the range of it? And is it true that people are going to lose their jobs as the baseline costs of the district increase, but are not matched by the baseline of ongoing revenues, where you separate out restricted funds and one-time funds, and other funds that cannot be used on an ongoing basis for the district's ongoing costs. So that's a question on the table for me. I think it's on the table for others as well. My hope is that the district can do everything possible to, as I said in our first budget session, to strengthen our programs, better compensate our staff, and meet our fiduciary responsibilities. Even before this inflationary spiral, our staff are not being paid enough to live in this region. We've got to find a way, and we have to work with the realities of everything that is currently so. Members of the board, any concluding comments or questions?
Yeah, this is a hard conversation to have. It's very complex, right? Especially because we're not just looking at this year. We're working with projections. We're working with ongoing changes, right? Interim one. How many, you just mentioned, Mr. Wheelahan, like 3 different books that are very thick with numbers. The numbers are tiny and the books are thick, right? And there's a number of times that we go through this process. So I just really want to acknowledge that the dialogue that's happening right now, despite the complex process, we're coming with questions, we're engaging. And I think one of the things that's really important for us to constantly do, so I think you spoke to this, Glenn, is always make sure that we understand what is behind any change, right? How did it go from this number to this number, right? So that we could be able to dialogue and move forward, so that the way Mr. Velasco said it right now, balance the 3 things, make sure that we pay our staff as best as possible, because our educators just simply don't make enough money, period. 2, be fiduciary
Our fiduciary responsibility.
responsibility.
And the other one was to strengthen our programs.
Yes, because we have a lot of work to do, especially coming out of COVID. Our students have a lot of, not just in Eastside, but just across the country. There's just so much work to do. And we also have to make sure that our teachers are equipped to support our students, right? And we started some of those programs with MTSS, like really honing in there, some of the pilots that we've seen with SPED, right? So there's a lot we're going to be talking about A through G. So I want to acknowledge all of that, and in addition to how complex this is.
Other comments, and at some point, we need a motion to approve the interim report. Member Lynn.
Yes, I want to clarify for this page, on the total revenue 2021, 22, 22, we show that 318.6 million. The second term, the 324, 21, 22, then the difference is for the second interim, from the first interim, is about, well, probably about 6 million. Where did it come from, and are we using
Well,
that
it was-
6 million?
The Educator Effectiveness Grant
Yes.
and special ed one-time revenue to help our special ed students with learning recovery due to
See.
COVID-19.
Hmm.
Those are the two that increased, and then the next page hasn't broken down.
And for those positions we did not fill, we carry over that kind of budget to the following year? Or how do we gonna keep that in the book?
So at second interim, we close those positions.
Mhm.
If we don't think they're going to be filled, and we're pretty sure by March, with only 3 months left, they won't be filled. There may be a couple that are left open for urgent positions, but other ones will be, the dollars will be released.
That we release.
It just decreases our expenses by that.
Oh, I see. All right. Yeah. Thank you for your clarification. And I also want to echo with my board colleagues that we really appreciate all of the teacher and staff have been worked so hard, for the last 2 years during the pandemic. And if the administrator can work together and help, find whatever the money that we have, but we want to balance the budget and keep the 3% regulated by the county. So that's something that I really want to urge, the administrator as well as that looking forward to continue the dialogue and work together so we can achieve our goal to support our student and all of this program that we have right now.
Member Cortez.
I just have a follow-up question to Member Lay's question. So the positions, it makes sense that the positions, if we haven't hired them by now, that maybe it doesn't make sense to hire them this year, but do we carry those positions open over for next year? Like we would open them for the fall? Because I think we want to be more.
So at this time, during budget development, we look at our position control, and each department goes through, as well as the site principals on staffing for next year. So that process has started.
Okay, so some of those positions might be actually eliminated because they say, for whatever analysis, they might conclude they could live without it, right? Or,
Right.
Whatever.
If they're eliminated and we go through the proper process to an unfilled position to close it, of course, there's steps we have to take to close a position.
okay, but the practice is to carry it over, but there's some analysis that goes with that.
Right, by each department and each school site.
Thank you.
Okay, we need a motion for approving the positive certification of the second.
A second.
Moved by Doe, seconded by Cortese. If there's no further discussion, all in favor? Yes, I want to call on our student board representative, Paula Escobar, who has not joined us. How do you vote? Paula, you're muted and we need your vote. Hearing you, I'm going to
Mary,
call,
is she on?
he's on the screen.
She is on. I'll see if they can.
I'm going to go ahead and call the board vote. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, abstentions? It passes unanimously. Paula, are you with us? I wanted to go back to item 7.01 to hear from our student governing board representative, Paula Escobar. I'm going to ask again, Paula, are you online? Moving on to item 8.03 regarding A through G completion improvement plan from Associate Superintendent Teresa Marquez.
Good evening, Board Trustees, Community. Teresa Marquez, Associate Superintendent at Services. At the last board meeting, if the board recalls, I presented the A through G plan. One of the requirements of the plan is to actually have it presented at one board meeting and then have it approved at the subsequent meeting. So I'm here just simply requesting for approval of the plan as presented at the March 3rd board meeting.
Moved by member Chavez and seconded by member Cortez.
I believe there is a written public comment on that, so I don't know if you want to wait to hear the public comment.
There is.
It's written online.
Oh, online comment. Go ahead.
Public comment from Mr. Larson, parent. Teresa Marquez, I think you're not getting buy-in from parents and teachers on how to spend the 4 million. One of the glaring issues at ESUHSD, I think, is the lack of scaffolding the learning in classrooms. Some teachers are brutal on how they grade and how they teach. So I ask and request that $500,000 be put into how to scaffold class teaching, and this be done district-wide. We must figure out how to help students who are not learning and, quite frankly, freaked out by the workload. So Teresa Marquez, I and others work with, submit to you. Go to the teachers, ask the teachers, get buy-in on scaffolding learning, then pay monies for learning on this and maybe supplement teachers to train, especially as Board Member Chavez said, in math. That is the end of public comment online under agenda item 803.
For that public comment, we do have a motion on the floor and a second. If there-
Can I make a comment?
Sure, go ahead, Vice President
if-
Chavez.
If you look at the plan, it is very much about scaffolding and supporting at so many levels. And so I want to acknowledge that because this is a very, very thorough plan. Yes, I did mention math. I stand by that still. And there's so many powerful strategies and focuses here that are so needed, especially from where we're starting coming out of the pandemic. It really acknowledges the state of our student population as a whole. So for what it's worth, I do want to shine light to that is exactly what this does. And Teresa, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Before I do, I do want to put it on the record. Last time, if you recall, there was a question around the allocation. The state of California had initially issued an amount, then they retracted it. They have now reissued an amount, and I do want to report so that it's on record that it's an increase of about $200,000. So we went from 4 million to 4.2 million. So I do want to report that on the record that the plan will be adjusted to reflect the additional $200,000. And just briefly in regards to your comments, Trustee Chavez, yes, the plan is really focusing on the instruction within the classroom as well as the supports that happen outside of it. But yeah, and happily, I have to have teacher buy-in. And so work very closely with the teachers across the district to really get their input because they're the ones that are going to be putting a lot of those strategies in place.
Thank you.
Thank you. We very appreciate it. And congrats on the good news.
Okay, if our student representative is online, Paula Escobar, how do you vote? We already have a motion and a second to approve the complete A through G completion improvement plan. Paula, or if you're online. If not, members of the board, I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions, and it passes unanimously. Before I move on, I'll check again, Paula Escobar, so that you can give your report. Are you available? Not hearing anything. Item 0.804, consideration.
Board President, I have public comment for 701.
For what? Oh, for 701. Public comment, okay. A little confused, but go ahead.
Public comment from parent, Mr. Larson. I and other parents applaud Student Governing Board Representative Paula Escobar for being outspoken on things she considers very important for all stakeholders. Paula Escobar, I hope you will speak out on spending in the contract things for ESUHSD. It is considered improper by many that the school board keeps spending monies on things that are not that valuable when that money needs to go to the teachers in classroom. That is the end of public comment under 701. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Gillen, if you could just let me know when Paula is available.
Yeah, I'm here right now.
Finally, I mean. Paula, welcome. And we're gonna go back to 7.01 and you have up to 5 minutes for any student governing board representative report or comments. Go ahead.
Yeah, so hi everyone. So we have some exciting updates from the Student Governing Board. We had some of our members from Independent, specifically Bung Nguyen and other independent representatives draft some bylaws. And so thanks to their hard work, we were able to review some of those. And I really want to shout them out because they put a lot of hard work into drafting some and really re-envisioning how we like kind of rule things and how student governing board members are going to move forward with the structure. Next, I want to present information on what SGB has been doing in terms of wanting to receive information on the state seal of civic engagement. We previously, last time we heard about this presentation, we were like planning on getting it this year for the seniors of class 2022 to receive it. And although that was the goal, it seems like that is unfortunately not going to happen just because like the timeline and like, adjusting to COVID. And I believe the state seal civic engagement is an important thing to have within our district just because it recognizes us as students for our work and for us as taking agency of our education. And not only that, but learning about different levels of government and learning about civic education. So I hope that for the juniors and for all the other upcoming grades, they'll be able to achieve that and that we'll be happy to help in the process of making the state seal of civic engagement a reality. Next, we are looking for members for next year's student governing board. If you attend any of the school sites and any of the comprehensive school sites, with the exception of Independence and Evergreen, you are eligible to apply, and you might have received an email from your school account saying information about the application. So we really urge you to fill that out. And if you know anyone who might be interested, please have them fill that out as well. Those are our updates for today, and I hope you guys are doing well. Let me know if you have any questions.
Board comments or questions on our student report? If none,
I guess just a quick comment. Yeah, I was really, really impressed with the students who are working to update the bylaws for the student governing board. And the goal is to bring a draft with their final approval to this board for our approval because we have to ratify the bylaws. So that'll be coming to us.
Thank you, Paula Escobar, our student governing board representative. On with the agenda 8.04, consideration, discussion, and or approval of waiver of facility use fees per board policy 1330. And this is an item that I am bringing forward. Under our policies, any member of the board may host one event of their choice per school year, waiving all facility costs except for custodial overtime. Bringing forward a request for approval to approve waiving all district facility costs and charges except custodial overtime for this community event, the 5th annual Buddha's birthday celebration, to be held at Independence High School on May 8, 2022. I became aware of this, was made aware of this event and have accepted an invitation also to attend at least a part of it. Looking forward to that. And requesting approval of this one-time waiver that each board member can exercise per school year. Okay, moved by Chavez, seconded by Doe. No, I'm gonna have seconded by Lay. And if there's no discussion, all in favor, please say aye. Excuse me, let me back up and say, student representative, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Okay, thank you, and members of the board, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, and it passes unanimously. Item 9.01, there are no items, public hearings. Item 10 on the agenda, public members who wish to address the board, and we have at least one request. Dylan?
Public comment from parent Kevin Larson. I wish to thank board member J. Manuel Herrera for making the very intelligent comment about the ESUHSD budget situation 2 board meetings ago. His words were honest and informative. These words were seen as transcribed in the Evergreen Times local newspaper, and 2, the words are so important, I request this front page of this issue be sent to all parents in the Eastside Union High School District. I have noticed that Superintendent Vanderzee does a mass email to all parents after each school board meeting. I request with approval of school board that Glenn Vanderzee put the link to the front page article of Evergreen Times, March 11, 2022. Go to Evergreen Times Archives, HTTPS, Times Media, page flip, slide editions, ET 65446, and state. The front page article in the Evergreen Times is an informative comment by J. Manuel Herrera, who is president of our ESUHSD board. We put the link here for all to read and be better informed about our budget. That is the end of online public comment under section 10.
Very much. For those who may not be aware of the background on this, there was an article that was published in the Evergreen Times, and it was a reporter who listened to the budget work session where we had a roundtable with stakeholders, and I made an introductory statement that was apparently transcribed by the reporter and published in a front page article. And Mr. Larson was bringing attention to that article, to the board's attention and to the administration's attention, requesting that that be posted on the website and others be informed of it, and just explaining what that's all about. Okay, thank you. Is there any other public comment, Ms. Gillen?
That is the end of online public comment.
Okay, we're going to move on then to item 11.01 regarding update on the novel coronavirus, COVID-19.
We have an orange slip, an actual in-person comment.
Oops, I'm very sorry. I went right over that. Under item 10, which is public comment, I want to call forward Mr. Julio Pardo, who as president of CSEA, or classified staff, has up to 5 minutes. Set the clock for 5 minutes, please.
Good evening, Julio Pardo, president for classified employees. I'm not here to say anything bad, but I do want to say that it was a relief this year, and this is March 17th. For the first time probably in a couple of years, I didn't hear the dreaded RIF brought up by this board so much. I'm hoping that the way we see the state budget going currently, that this will not have to occur again next year.
Could you repeat what you just said? I didn't get it. I didn't understand it.
That for the last couple of years, I have not heard the dreaded term RIF from this
Reduction in
board that
force.
we've faced for many years. I will agree with Mr. Hamner that we also have questions about the budget presentation that was given tonight, but we will wait to address those concerns at the meeting you're going to hold later. I would like to give a shout out to both Ms. Marquez and Mr. Nguyen. Ms. Marquez for supporting some of our paraeducators for the conference that we just completed a week ago. And I got to tell that Mr. Nguyen, I know we can't discuss what we're doing at negotiations, which we just started, but this was probably the first time that we were probably, that I'll admit it, CSA might have been the bad guys at this meeting instead of the district for once. But it was very professional, and I have to admit that I think it's the first time I've seen the district so well prepared in meeting with us. So Mr. Nguyen, I hope it continues that way. I know at some point we probably will be at each other's throat, but that should be expected. Thank you.
Oh, good. Thank you very much, Mr. Pardo. If there are no other public comments, I'm going to move on to 11.01 regarding update on novel coronavirus COVID-19 adopting resolution authorizing remote teleconference meetings. Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you for that. And for tonight, as we continue to track the coronavirus and our district's response to it, as Mr. Wheelan noted, that, what was it? March 16, 2020, 2 years ago. It was the March 13, that Friday, that we walked away, and then, yeah. Yeah, and it just, the amount of changes, and I remember going to your supermarket and having to wear the gloves and then sanitize on the way out, and all the things that we've been through. And who knows that we were going to learn to love plastic shields and see them everywhere we go. And just, it's been amazing. But the impact on our staff and students is high, and on our families. And it's 2 years out, and we'll continue to deal with the effects of parent loss and loss, but we're committed to it. So tonight, what I have to show is, like we do at all of our meetings, just so that we're all informed of the data, what we're currently working from, is our numbers around cases, death, vaccination, locally, and then also within our schools. We did last time say that the mandate for wearing masks indoors was going to end. We moved past that now. It's now optional. That's it. Talked about it a little bit, our ongoing safety measures, and then a change to our field trip process. So as we do every time, we take a look at what the data said last time we were together and what it is now. So last time we met on March 3rd, our 7-day rolling case average for a county was 275. That's an average of the last 7 days. We're currently at 171. So 104 case drop since the last time we were all together. This is the one that's cumulative. Please make sure that that's not the number of deaths since the last time we've seen each other. But we were at 2133 as a county last time we were together. And currently we are at 2180, which is still lives lost, but we're starting to see a decrease now week to week in people that are falling due to the coronavirus. Vaccinations, we mildly tick up right now as a county. Check it out. We're above 90. We were above at 90.4. And look at us now. We're at 90.4. So we still, we're starting to plateau in some of those rates. This one became very interesting as Omicron hit, between the average case rate for 1,000 individuals over a 7-day average. The case rate for unvaccinated persons in orange and vaccinated in blue. And last time we met, it was 73% for 100,000 for unvaccinated, 73.6 cases per 100,000 residents. For vaccinated, 12. Keep those numbers in your head. Down to 54 and 10. So continue to see drops in our caseloads. This is the one that's kind of near to dear to all our hearts here. This is our COVID dashboard. And last time we were at, for staff, and remember, this is not an average, this is a total count. So total number of cases, not over the last 7 days, but even wider, the last 10 days, we were at 2 and 13, right? Today, we went down by a total of 1, but we went to 3 and 11. So, very similar data points, essentially, kind of maintaining our data points from last time. Similar, we're starting to see a plateauing effect with our vaccinations at about 87.2%. But the thing that I think that as a community, we had to deal with was when we sent out that letter, I believe it was on March 7th, saying, okay, there are new mandates. Because of this drop in data, because of the higher rates of vaccination, because of the availability of hospital beds, our state and our county changed its masking guidelines for no longer mandated indoor wearing of masks in schools after March 11. And that was Gavin Newsom's proclamation, the California Department of Health, and then Santa Clara County followed suit. So as a district, continuing to follow the science, debating this a lot, thinking through what should our stance be. We decided to go with the health professionals the science and the case rates and just be mindful of that, as well as being mindful of the safety measures that we will continue to keep in place for folks, to keep our counts low and to continue to watch the data to see if it rises. And so on Monday, we saw it, right? It became optional. And for the most part, our students have decided to keep those masks on. If you visit our campuses, you're going to see a great majority of students continuing to mask. Go ahead. And we will continue to make sure that those masks are available to them if they need to get them through.
Yeah, and I just want to emphasize that the recommendation was that they're no longer required, but they are strongly recommended.
Strongly recommended. Right, and if they've been shown to be an effective means for self-protection, right? I think you mentioned this at our last meeting, that when COVID first came out, it was like, use masks to protect others. What we've learned is use it, it's a good form for self-protection. So, yeah, so we'll continue to make testing available. We'll distribute masks. We'll follow the guidelines still of notifying individuals. And I can't thank the schools enough. When we had those case rates at like 200, all the notifications they had to go out. Now that it's 3 and 11, it's still a chore, but a much more manageable one. I just want to thank all our staff for the work that they did in keeping our families informed through this process. That was, you know, our system built to educate. And this issue, we're also asked to keep people healthy, and so that was a task that a lot of schools and educators had to adjust to, and I thank them for that. We'll continue to maintain the proper ventilation and filtration. We'll honor our existing agreements. And what I emphasize also in my letter is that some people have been affected definitely in terms of mental health and wellness by what's still from the experience of distance learning. Some people express some early anxiety in terms of learning and seeing with the people without masks. And if anybody needs any support in dealing with those issues, it's in the letter, it's in here tonight. And we'll continue to make sure this is a link to our referral process to get students and staff to support with connection with social workers if they're dealing with an issue. The biggest or the most technical change besides going from a mandate to strongly recommended is that we met with the COVID response team and they gave a recommendation to start to allow for out-of-state field trips in if the participants test prior on the return and then before entering classes, and then 3 days after that return. So the in-state overnight was test prior and upon return before entering classes. The out-of-state is the same, plus test 3 days after. So the other condition is to make sure that the state that they visit or the area that they visit has COVID rates equal to or less than California. Once that's established, then the processes that we have in place about schools notifying ed services, bringing it to the board for approval, and then also working with human resources so we can get those tests for those participants so that even when they arrive at the end of the weekend or when they come back, that those tests are available for them and won't lose class time. So, you know, this 2 years later, it's like a very different report. Okay. And so we'll continue to monitor the data. We'll continue to make testing available. We'll pivot if we have to. We'll go mostly just as I just want our staff and our families to know and our students to know, we will generally defer to those state and county guidelines from our health professionals in dealing with health recommendations, even though as a system, we've been very active as health providers. And we'll continue to make sure that we secure the right masks and other PPE and testing supplies to make sure that we can continue our communities safely.
That concludes
That's
your
the end
report?
of my presentation.
Okay, well, comments, questions, and we need a motion authorizing the resolution.
Yeah, so that's the
Adopting the resolution.
yeah, so this
We moved by member Doe, seconded by member Lay. If there's no further discussion, student board member, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Thank you. And members of the board, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Ever, what is it? Opposed, abstentions, that's right. Passes unanimously. 11.02 regarding selection appointment of board audit committee members. Board Vice President Chavez.
Yes, so we're bringing forward, we have two opportunities for folks to join our audit committee. So we are recommending that the Board of Trustees appoint two applicants to serve on the Board Audit Committee. Vikas Navani as a public member with a 2-year term, February 1st, 2022 through January 31st, 2024. And John Ranky as an alternate member with a 1-year term, February 1, 2022 through January 31st, 2023. Both have been very involved. They're huge assets to our audit committee, and we're really excited to welcome them again upon approval of the board.
Members of the board, comments, questions, or a motion, please.
Oh, go ahead.
Approval by motion by member Doe, seconded by member Lay. Student board member, how do you vote? Student board member Paula Escobar, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Thank you. And members of the board, all in favor, please say aye.
Hi.
Opposed, abstention, unanimously.
And I just want to thank those gentlemen for their continued service. John was doing this years ago when I first started on the board. So really glad that he's back doing this.
John Reinke has been here for about as many years as I have been. He never retires. Thank you, John, and thank you others.
I thought you were gonna say John because his hand's raised. So I wanted to also acknowledge John is on and so is Vika. So I don't know if it looks like John, you want to say a few words? He can, right?
Yes,
Sure,
please.
sure.
We'd love to hear.
Okay, can we
Love to hear
unmute
from
John?
Reinke.
Frankie?
I just wanted to say I'm looking forward to serving again.
That's amazing, Mr. Reinke. You've really given so much over so many years. Thank you so much for your service.
Welcome
Yes.
back.
Welcome back.
I also want to thank my my board audit committee chair, Lorraine Chavez, for her leadership on this.
Thank you.
Of
And-
leadership.
and-
Because if you want to say something, you're also unmuted.
Vika. Vika.
Yes, thank you. And I'm looking forward to be part of the committee as well.
And thank you, Mr. Vikas, for your
Thank you both.
service.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you both.
Moving on, item 12.01, there are no items for this agenda. 13.01, to approve contracts, and professional services over 25,000. We need a motion.
Approved.
Moved by Cortese, seconded by Doe. All in favor. Oops, student board member, how do you vote? Paula Escobar.
Sorry, I thought it was unmuted. I vote yes.
Okay, thank you. All members of the board, all in favor, please say aye.
Hi.
Opposed, abstention, passes unanimously. On to 14.01, approving request for reduced workload program, 2022-2023 school year. Do we need any comment? Or do we just have a motion?
We do need a motion for approval. This is a one renewal and one new request. We approved a reduced workload last year for Mr. Martin Brandt. This year we have one additional request from Ms. Ross as well to go on a reduced workload this coming school year.
There's no discussion. I need a motion.
Second.
Moved by Lay and seconded by Chavez. Student board member, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Members of the board, all in favor, please say aye.
Hi.
Hi.
Opposed, abstentions? Unanimously. 14.02, approve First Amendment to employment contract for interim associate superintendent of business services. Moved by Doe and second by Lay. Student board member, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
For the board, all in favor, please say aye.
Hi.
Opposed, abstentions, passes unanimously. 15.01, approving bond capital project contracts over 50,000. Need a motion?
Move to approve.
Moved by Cortese, second by Doe. Student board member, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
With the board, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, abstentions, passes unanimously. 11.01, action, oops, I turned the wrong page. Are we at the consent calendar?
We're at
Oh,
consent.
okay, well, I'm going to pull item 19.01 in order for a public comment to be made. And for the balance of the consent calendar, we need a motion.
Move to approve the consent calendar without 1901.
They moved by Cortese, seconded by Doe, student board member. How do you vote?
I vote yes.
Thank you, members of the board, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, passes unanimously. Item 19.01, which is for certificated, classified personnel actions. And Mr. Julio Pardo wishes to comment. Please set the clock for 5 minutes.
Pardo, President for Classified Employees. Excuse me. First of all, it's a quick aside. I'd like to mention the fact that in all the classes that I work in, every single student kept their mask on. And I would say that our site, at least 90% of the students, even outside, keep their masks on. I'm more concerned about some of my colleagues who don't wear their masks, including I had to save myself sometimes. I forget to put it back up. I brought this item up only because there was a little bit of a concern with this position for new classified movement. The fact that there's one position there that was listed as William C. Overfelt, and that position is actually out of Apollo. So I just want to put that on the record, the fact that we expect this person to be working on Apollo and not at William C. Overfelt. Thank you.
We'll correct that then in the,
Yeah.
Oh, just to let you know, I did contact Human Resources. They did tell me about the fact it was a typo
oh,
because Apollo is on the William C. Orfeld campus. And so that's why the mistake was probably made. They did catch it. They did say that they didn't have time to correct it in which was given to you. So they will have it at the next meeting. I just want to make sure it's on the record side in case someone calls me. Yes, the board knows about it.
yeah, does it affect our taking action or can we just approve this?
You can
and-
take action and wasn't a correction at the next board meeting. It was just a typo.
Yeah, it was a typo. Again, I understand why Apollo is at William C. Orfeld. So if you get hired at Apollo, people probably think you're at William C. Orfeld.
Okay, my layperson understanding is since we're correcting it live in a board meeting, it doesn't have to come back. You just adjust the written record for what was acted on.
I think we have the discretion to do that as well.
Okay,
To
that's
strike
what we'll
and
do.
make the amendment on
Yeah,
the format.
we're just going to correct it here tonight and act on it as corrected.
Yes.
All right, so as corrected, we need a motion for approval.
For approval.
Moved by Chavez, seconded by Doe. Doe does not give anyone a chance to second here.
It's all good. It's all good.
Moved by Chavez, seconded by Doe. Student board member, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
You on item 19.01, members of the board, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, and it passes unanimously. On to item 21, written reports and recommendations 21.01. No, that's just 21. Received, taken, we're 21.02 is what is being transmitted. The County Office of Education positive certification letter for the first interim report. It's simply being entered into the record here, folks. We don't need any action. We don't need any discussion. It's duly noted. Thank you very much. Item 22.01, opportunity for Board of Trustees to request items on future agendas. We have no requests. Item 22.02 simply lists the future items that are scheduled to be brought forward in a certain time frame. Item 23.01, comments by the Board of Trustees. I'll begin to my left with member Doe.
I just want to take opportunity to thank our staff and admin for their hard work despite some of the challenges for the year. Thank you very much.
No comment.
No comment. Member Cortese.
Just happy anniversary, 2 years. We got through it and I'm sure we'll continue to get through it with everybody's hard working together. Thank you.
I want to acknowledge the hard work of student who had the multicultural performance at Independence, Santa Teresa, the hard work, and as well as the support of teachers and staff. I can see the lively and the momentum and all of this smile from the student is really make me feel great. Looking, all of this performance, from the student, and I will get invited. Every time I get invited, I would like to come and attend. And I really appreciate, the teachers have been strong support for the student, for the VSA at Independence as well as a Santa Teresa and all of this group at Independence. I also want to say thank you to Principal Jose Hernandez as invite me for the coffee chat with parents yesterday, and I had the chance to talk with the parents as well as understand what their needs. So I'm gonna visit them again, and I'm open, for other school. And tomorrow I will have the Zoom link with parents at Andrew Hill High School. So appreciate that, and also appreciate activity directors John Fong also have given me the opportunity to talk to the student for civic engagement. And I'm so had the board meeting Work to Future this morning, and I will connect one of the board member for Work to Future with superintendent, because they have quite few program to support our McKinney Bento homeless students. So I'm gonna direct the connection there so we can have some additional resource to help our student. That's all I have, Board President.
Very much. And comments? Oh, my turn, and I do not have a comment. I'm going to proceed with comments from our Student Governing Board representative, Paula Escobar.
Hi, so I first wanted to give a shout out to again, like the SGB representatives from Independence for their hard work in making this bylaws. Like, I can't emphasize enough how great this turned out, and also how much work they put into that. So I'm really grateful for having such amazing representatives and working with such great people. And I also wanted to shout out the students at Evergreen who've been working really hard to put together all the classes, which will be happening this Saturday. And I also want to wish everyone a happy International Women's History Month, recognizing all like the women who have paved the paths for us to be here today, be in these education spaces and making the changes that we want to see in our community.
Thank you very much. Comments now by our superintendent.
Well, just once again, thank you for everybody for the work over the last 2 years, and it's been great to see the events starting to come back, students starting to express those talents and groups. And I believe this Saturday night, the Vietnamese Cultural Committee will be having an event at Oak Grove. Silver Creek's the BSU and Social Activism Club will be having a webinar this Sunday from 1 to 3 on how to be a Black ally. Our athletes are back on our fields. Our people are planning for graduation, and it's starting to have those moments again. And it's just great to just see our students just and our educators really just start to blossom and get back. Thank you all.
Thank you. And we're at 23.04 board meeting evaluation. Any comments? Up, says Member Doe, and I don't hear anyone contesting that. So
Straightforward and efficient.
straightforward and efficient, I'm hearing. Okay, that's enough of our. All right, thank you very much. Moving on to 24.01 legal counsel report on closed session actions.
Closed session item 2.07, the board unanimously rejects the claim of L. Luong. There are no additional closed session actions to report.
That brings us to the end of our meeting, and the meeting is hereby adjourned. Good night. Thank you, everyone, for your participation.